Welcome to Hibiscus Society News, shooting the shit. I'm Benjamin Hawk. Welcome to Conspiracy Theory episode. Now, I have brought my own tinfoil hat for this, but it's hot as fuck, and I'm not wearing it. So the government's gonna be reading my brainwaves while we're doing this. And frankly, if they want to hear the Meow Mix theme song, then they can listen to my Meow Mix theme song in my fucking brain. With me, I got Patrick Henry. He's gonna go over some conspiracy theories, and we're just gonna go through them. If you have any questions, feel free to post in the comments here, and we'll throw your question up on the board, which we'll answer them as best as we can. I'll probably have questions. We might have a few more guests join us a little bit later, but we're gonna have fun. So Patrick, take it away.
All right, thank you. So my first theory is the COVID-19 one. So I think it's not a real disease of its own. It's a flu strain, and not only that, but the government. So basically, I know a few people that died, and the only people that I know that have died are people who were in hospitals. So I think there's something going on with them trying to get funding, whether it's government aided or not. I'm not quite sure yet, but I just think that it's a little suspicious that everybody I know who goes into a hospital ends up dying from it.
No, it is suspicious. It is. I mean, shoot, Como put like thousands of fucking old folks in retirement homes infected with COVID, with people that weren't infected with COVID, and then killed tens of thousands of fucking old people.
Yep, that's true. Yeah, Cuomo did that. It just came out, and he's getting under fire from it, actually. And they actually want to impeach him. They want to recall him to California as well. And there's a whole bunch of governors. Also, a bunch of these governors and officials are total hypocrites, like Gavin Newsom and Nancy Pelosi in California. The Oregon, I think the Oregon governor got in trouble too, and the Portland mayor, and the Rhode Island governor. She was out drinking wine. Governor of Connecticut, Ned Lamont, he was caught out in a restaurant maskless. So a bunch of officials are getting in trouble for the rules they are creating. It's almost like they want to make us the peasants and them the king.
Oh, it's almost like it's a trial run for something bigger.
Yeah, definitely. Something bigger that's beyond most people's. They don't want to think about it. A lot of people don't want to think about what's coming with this trial run. But something is coming, and people are also discovering mysterious things. And I heard in Texas that there was these beams that were seen flying up into the sky before the weather disaster down there. And they say that they were talking about secession in Texas before that. And a few other southern states, too, were talking about secession. But, then the storm came, knocked out power, and they stopped talking about secession.
So you're talking like, now I'm in Texas. So, and I can't confirm or deny, because I don't go outside much, because I'm just kind of I'm a indoor loser. But we were talking. It was interesting. Like it was going to be brought up in the legislative session about putting in doctrine, to secede from the United States. It was being discussed in our state legislature right before the winter storm hit, and then boop, power goes out. Winter storm hit, power goes out, water goes out, and all of a sudden now nobody's talking about it.
Yeah, and another thing that's a little suspicious is the fact that the storm mysteriously got bigger once it was heading towards Texas. Like the northern states, they got their usual, and then these southern states seem to have been getting hit worse and worse until Texas became the worst part of the storm. For some reason, it's strange. It just got stronger.
And I'll tell you what I did notice. I did notice an increase in high-level aircraft right before the storm came across. High level of chemtrail. crisscrossing across North Texas as the storm was rolling in. There was a lot, Texas. Now we have a major airport in Texas. We have DFW International, and that's the major airport. But Texas is not a major crisscross flyover state for east to west flight traffic. We're far south for that. To see a bunch of planes flying at 30, 40,000 feet flying over Texas was odd. And I noticed it.
Yeah,
because I was like, why are there so many planes, and why are there so many jet trails in the sky when we didn't have these before? And then the storm hit and got progressively worse.
And but it's also said that Texas. So I don't know how true it is. Supposedly, that between Colorado, Texas, Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, Oklahoma, that's where they carry the most nuclear weapons, transporting them back and forth. So if Texas were to secede, they might be left with quite a few nuclear weapons.
Oh, if Texas seceded, we have nuclear silos in Texas. We are also, our rail lines are a crisscross for United Pacific and BNSF. I mean, we're a major thoroughfare for petroleum import and export. We're a major thoroughfare. We do get nuke trains that go through, and for not necessarily nuclear ordnance, but waste disposal that are headed out to that whatever Cheyenne Mountain, whatever that mountain complex is, where they're storing all the waste nuclear fuel rods from the nuclear power plants. We're a thoroughfare for that. Chemical industry, we're a big thoroughfare for that. Anything that needs to go from north to south to the Gulf goes through Texas, and almost anything that needs to go by rail car east to west goes through Texas.
Yeah, Cheyenne Mountain Complex is the one you're thinking of, and
yeah.
Oh, I forgot what I was going to say after that, but it was. There's a lot of different stuff going on in Texas right now, but and also there's stuff going on, and they say the revolution will be televised. Now, I'm not, of course, I'm not a Trump supporter, but so there are a bunch of Trump protests in the state on the end, and none of them are being talked about. The media will not talk about them. They won't cover them. They won't show anything. Maybe the town paper will, but the state media will not cover it for some reason.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting. There was a lot of coverage over January 17th. Were you there in Texas?
Oh yeah, no, we had the press. We had the press all up our butts on J17.
I had a lot of press of mine because I was the only person there. I was the first person to show up. I was the only blue boy there, and I was the only one who was comfortable giving signs or hints that I was a blue boy. The rest of them, some of them, I guess, were Republicans or something that were with liberty organizations, and then a bunch of anti-fascists. That was the biggest group of them. But
our anti-fascists in Texas decided they sent out a release or something that just basically like we think this is a false flag, and we're not, this is a recruiting method, and we're not even going to go. So they didn't even show up.
Oh wow.
Which I don't know why. I mean, I was kind of hoping they'd show up, because I'd love to talk with them and be like, "Hey, we're not your enemy. Hey, we're we want the same kind of things you want. Like, why can't we work together?" But they didn't show up, so we didn't get to have that conversation.
Yeah, definitely. It sucks. And now a lot of people who were advocates of the Patriot Party or 3%er militiamen, they don't want to show up anywhere because there could be a false flag. I heard that the FBI had agents stationed in the Capitol. I said, okay, I'm going anyway. That doesn't scare me. Why should it?
Yeah, we went not Hawaiian We went just kind of like plain clothes, just simply because it's like, well, if we see anybody with a Hawaiian shirt on, we're gonna know they're the Fed.
Yeah, I didn't wear mine either.
We were just like, yeah, fuck it, whatever. We'll just fucking throw them off and just see what happened, and and it was great. Nothing happened. Yeah. I mean, it was kind of funny because the media kept like trying to egg us on, like, well, what about this? Don't you want to storm the building? No, we don't. It's not what this is about. Oh, well, don't you want to start a civil war? No, not really. It's not what we're about. Well, yeah, don't awesome. You want to just stop? Just wherever. I know you read Wikipedia before you came over here to do your report. Just stop, okay?
I got to talk to a lot of media, and only one of them said the Boogaloo was all right in their report, because I said, we are Duncan Lemp, and some of them didn't really get it on site. They had to wait a while, and somebody deleted a tweet, one of the reporters. But actually, my article got sent to the Houston Chronicle in Texas, which is pretty interesting.
Wow. Yeah, we had it was interesting because I got quoted in like national shit, and then the local stuff, like the NBC dude was like, his report was like, why the fuck am I here? Like, FBI said this was going to happen. Nothing happened. The FBI was wrong. These guys are cool. I don't know what everybody's issue is. Like, his report was chill as fuck. And then, like, ABC, the ABC news affiliate, her report was, like, all, like, trumped up and, like, the riot that should have happened, but, it didn't because the police were there and to protect us all. And I'm like, bitch, please. Oh God. So, I have a theory on something. Keep in mind during the presidential election, right? They were giving Kamala Harris, our vice president, a lot of airtime, and she let something slip when she was talking about gun control. And she's like, I will take, in the first 100 days, I will take executive action to rein in gun control if Congress won't do it. And it stuck with me because I'm like, well, hold up. You're the vice president. You can't even take an executive shit. And then I started thinking, like, oh my God, have they already figured out? Are they already planning? My theory, my conspiracy theory here is that within the next 6 months to a year, if Congress doesn't do the gun confiscation shit that they want them to do, or pass the laws that they want them to pass, they're going to 25th Amendment Biden and put her in charge. Like, this is already in the planning, already told her, like, hey, we're gonna make you president. We're gonna make Biden's a puppet. He's straight like fucking woohoo, all timers out to lunch. We'll take him out, as in like we'll 25th Amendment him because he's mentally incompetent, because he doesn't know what he's signing. He doesn't know what he's doing. I mean, he was on camera like, what am I signing? Don't worry, sign it. Okay. Like the minute the puppet stops doing puppet things, they're gonna 25th Amendment him out, making Kamala Harris now the president, and then they're gonna turn around and then she's going to, because you don't pick a vice president, the president picks the vice president. So she's gonna probably pick like Speaker of the House, number 3 in command. The natural choice would be the Speaker of the House, which is why it was such a big deal. Nancy Pelosi maintained the speakership, will become the vice president. And God help us all if that happens.
Yeah, that's an interesting theory, though. Well, here's a funny alternative to the theory is she's as sleepy as Sleepy Joe, and she just doesn't know where she is either. She probably smoked too much of that marijuana she put people in jail for, and now she doesn't know who she is.
Oh, dude, what? Nancy Pelosi? I think the Botox went to her head.
Oh,
I
yeah,
am not a fan. I used to live in California. I am not a fan of Nancy Pelosi. I'm not a fan of Gavin. I saw what Gavin Newsom did to San Francisco.
Oh, yeah.
And San Francisco used, like, don't get me wrong, San Francisco's always had issues and it's always had corrupt politicians. But God, what he did to San Francisco, I mean, fucking, you can't walk down the street without stepping on a heroin needle or some fucking dude, like, taking a shit in the street. Man,
yeah,
it's bad.
Like
and then,
that.
like, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, you go ahead, sorry.
No, and then, like, I think the kicker, what it really just fucking did it for me with Newsom, with how just corrupt and rules for ye but not for me attitude he has, is he banned, because the sound of the helicopters landing at the hospitals for critically ill patients woke him up at night. He banned all medical helicopters to land inside the city limits of San Francisco. So you have all these hospitals with helipads, they can't use them. Except the one time his wife needed to be life flighted, so he let them life flight her. But not the thousands of other patients, critically ill patients, that had to be landed at the airport. And this is back when I worked as an EMT, so I used to go pick up the patients at the airport and then bring them to SF General, bring them to UCSF, bring them to the VA hospital from the airlift, which takes about half hour to 45 minutes. It takes about, and depending on traffic, but you know, these are critically ill patients that you're making land at the SFO airport because you got woken up at night. Until it was your wife, which of course then you're like, oh no, land the helicopter. I'll allow it for this one time. You corrupt piece of shit. Then of course he went to the, during the mask mandate, he went to the French Laundry and without a mask and ate food and socialized with like 20 people and held a fundraiser. And
well, another theory I have of the COVID-19 thing is that they did this to prevent the second revolution, because they know since the 1870s that they've been rigging elections, and they saw what happened in 2017 when Trump was rigged to win. They see that, well, people are getting pissed off. It doesn't matter if it's from the left or the right, but Antifa had some pretty hard riots back in 2017. So basically, it's just to divide. They just wanted to divide the people with this election issue. And the Democrats tried to make it look like they weren't in on it when they were in on it. It was a whole mess. And they issued these executive orders closing bars specifically in churches, because that's supposedly, from what I know, that's where a lot of these militia forming members met during the American Revolution. So
almost every revolution in the world has started in a bar or church.
Exactly. So they just seen that and they went, yikes, gotta do something. And they did. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's... Oh, yeah, no, they couldn't... They found a loophole. They couldn't legally stop... They couldn't stop the protests because, well, it's your First Amendment, it's a constitutionally protected act. So they can't stop the protests. So what they did was they just made it so you couldn't assemble. They made it. They trumped up this virus that is been. I mean, if you look at the numbers, it's about as infectious as H1N1. It's about as as bird flu, swine flu. It's a little less infectious than the Spanish flu back from the beginning of the 20th century. But as far as viruses go, it's really run of the mill.
Yeah.
So as far as infectious rates, like you can take a person with COVID, put them in a room with 10 people, and maybe 3 will get it.
Yeah. Also, the what was it there? Yikes. My memories is about as short.
Oh, it's okay. But it's also a money grab too, because how much money are these county health officials and county health programs getting, and hospital districts getting, going like, oh, we've got we've had, instead of like, like, oh, like we had, it's like, well, how many people, they've had these conversations, because I know these numbers are trumped up, because when you got somebody who's 98 years old who had COVID and died, did they die from the COVID, or they died for the fact they're 98?
Yeah.
So you're trumping up the numbers. I mean, guy gets hit by a bus, but he had COVID, so they said, well, he died of COVID. No, he died from blunt force trauma from getting hit from a fucking bus, but he got counted as a COVID death. So they get more. The more COVID deaths they have, the more money they make. And there was that scientist, that doctor down in Florida, that she blew the whistle on them altering the numbers. She wouldn't do it. They're having her alter numbers. She's like, I'm not doing it. And then they fired her for it. So she went and created her own website with actual COVID numbers, which then the health department, which I didn't know a health department could do this, issued a warrant for her arrest and had the cops come and raid her house, steal her computers, and point guns at her kids and fucking arrested her. Yeah. For accessing government private sensitive information.
Yeah, the what was it there? Government, the IRS does that. Yeah, and I'm like, the IRS had guns. I didn't know this until I watched an interview with a tax resistance member of the Quaker Church, and he resisted taxes for 4 years, and the IRS came with guns and arrested him.
Oh shit! I've never heard of that one. Sorry, I am thirsty. So that, so there's, I mean, the thing about, it's like it's fun, it's interesting with all these, there's so many different conspiracy theories. There's a lot of the thing about conspiracy theory is like, there's when you say and I don't even like calling them conspiracy theories, because they're just theories, just an idea. There's nothing wrong with an idea, but as soon as you come up with it, and a lot of times they're not even that outlandish. It's all stuff that our government is perfectly capable and capable of doing. That they but they're so quick to be like, oh, you're just a conspiracy theorist, right? Until you're right. Like there's been a few especially with like, I hate bringing up Alex Jones, but I mean, I think the biggest one was when the water turning the frogs gay. That actually happened. He was right about that, and the government came out and went, yeah, we made the frogs gay. And they're like, holy shit, he was right.
They might be making humans gay now too. So this new generation, and it keeps increasing in the numbers who identify as LGBT. So maybe they're turning humans gay too now. They're dropping gay bombs on us. The one that was talking about. Like,
I don't know. The more tap water I drink, the less I'm offended by dick. Maybe there is something to that. I don't know. But it's, but oh yeah, no, tap water is like, I drink tap water because I'm a poor. So, and I mean, if I could drink, I need to get a little filtration system or something. But I mean, I like being ignorant about it, because when I actually kind of looked in, when my buddy started like kind of giving me the information on tap water, like all the chemicals they use to purify it that don't necessarily come out of the water when they're done, like the high levels of hydrogen peroxide and chlorine and like stuff that like in the percentages it's in, if it doesn't get mixed with water and hits raw air, it's explosive. And we're drinking that shit.
Yeah, we're drinking it. Yep, and another one was, he said about FEMA death camps. Well, Walmarts are now being given the authorization to get the vaccine. FEMA has been given the authorization to get the vaccine. And Now also FEMA's allegedly going door to door in some Texas neighborhoods, I heard.
Oh, they can fucking eat my balls. I am not getting the vaccine. I will get the vaccine after it's had proper research done with it. I am not getting something that some asshat designed where the lowest bidder for the government said, it's safe. No, not going to happen.
Yeah. Well, another thing with scientists is, like, they said smoking cigarettes was safe in the 1950s.
Oh, doctors used to prescribe cigarettes for stress. They'd be like, oh, smoke 4 a day.
Heroin,
here's a prescription, smoke 4 cigarettes a day. Here, have some cocaine, have some MDMA. Fucking, oh, you're tired? Have some meth. Here's some fen-phen.
That's when doctors were good.
Like they fucking, like a lot of shit that's illegal was legal at one point and prescribed by doctors. So until research dictated, like, hey, this stuff's actually like bad. And I've read some papers about this COVID vaccine, not the Johnson & Johnson one, because the one-shot Johnson & Johnson one is completely like the Moderna and the Pfizer one, and the Pfizer one. Those two are an RNA strain type vaccine.
Yeah,
and from what some doctors published out of Europe said that the protein markers on the red cells on the COVID virus are very, very similar to the protein markers in female placenta tissue. So what they're saying is that if a woman gets the COVID, one of the RNA variants of the COVID virus. Welcome, Tommy.
Ah!
Hey, Tommy.
Hey.
So, as I was saying, if a woman gets one of these RNA type vaccines, there's a chance that it can make them sterile.
Yeah.
Because they won't be able to form a placenta because the vaccine attacks the protein markers in the placenta tissue.
Yeah,
that's what I read. So that is why my daughters, I'm holding off on getting them vaccinated until their school forces them, because I want more research. I want to make sure I want grandbabies in the way future, not now. I want grandbabies.
I was actually talking with my mom about this. Is Patrick dead over there?
Patrick here.
Oh, you're just freezing.
Yeah, I'm getting something too.
Sorry, cold open here though. So what have we been talking about? What crazy shenanigans is everybody getting up to?
Well, we've been talking a lot about COVID. We talked a lot about COVID, how it's a money grab and then a plan to. It's a test run of something bigger.
Absolutely.
And then I brought up my theory of Biden's probably only got 6 months for the 25th Amendment. We have Harris as president.
Oh yeah, I mean, when they were doing the 25th Amendment shit back in October, did anybody really in their right mind think that had anything to do with Trump? I mean, why would the Democrats go do that when Biden was polling double digits ahead of Trump? And I mean, what Trump had damned himself in the public for his COVID response. Like, it was pretty clear going into it that Biden was the favorite and probably going to win. Whether you believe the election was legitimate or not, what need did they have for the 25th Amendment, at least on paper, for Trump?
They were just, I know they were hell-bent on trying to punish Trump in any way possible.
Sure, but even that's out of their purview when he realistically only had 3 months left at the time. Like, Trump lost that race in April.
Well, I mean, why did they even send articles of impeachment to the Senate after he lost and was not president anymore? There was no point.
They're trying to make it so he couldn't run for president again, and they could legitimately take away his entire security detail and all that. But they were never. That was Trump hysteria at its finest. But the 25th Amendment shit that Pelosi was doing had nothing to do with Trump. It was entirely about Biden. Trump, I mean, I think 6 months is soon because they're not going to be able to get their full COVID rollout in 6 months. I mean, I think by the end, I'd be shocked if Biden makes it to midterms. That's my kind of, because I just
That's
don't.
actually probably a more fair assessment is midterm elections. If Democrats lose control in midterm elections,
yeah, you're going to see Biden get out, and who knows? He'll die. He'll be mentally incapable. I don't know, but the dude can barely string together a sentence. What else do we expect?
But they're going after. I mean, it was interesting is how they were how everyone was like Como and Newsom, all the bad shit these Democrat governors were doing. It was really interesting how the mainstream media was completely silent about it until Biden won. And then Biden won. Now they're basically crucifying these guys.
Oh shit! They still they still don't really even say it though. They've just stopped shutting down the people that were saying it, right? I mean, you can see look, I'm no conservative, but you can see Facebook's allowing Daily Wire to get posted again. When 5 months ago, that would get your account shut down. And look, I am no conservative. I'm pretty open that I think the left is worse, but I just because the right. Oh, the only difference is that the authoritarian right at least has a quasi a populist stance within it, even if it's massively misguided. There's a populist element in there that doesn't exist on the left. Anyway, that's a whole other thing. Here's my question, I guess. Where do you fall in line with Bill Gates and all of this?
I think Bill Gates needs to focus on software and stop trying to get into the vaccine game, because last time I checked, a software engineer is not a doctor.
I think that Bill Gates has been involved in this shit for a lot longer than people realize.
I know, so he's big on human population growth control.
Oh yeah.
That was another red flag for me for these two vaccines that use RNA sequencing as their basis for the vaccine, because he'd love to stop human population growth and control breeding.
Slow it down.
Like we're a bunch of fucking Shih Tzus.
Well, kind of to them, right? Because you see Alex Jones talk about it, and if we're doing a conspiracy episode, Alex Jones is the dude, right?
Yeah.
He talks about it in his one of his first films. I always forget the name of his films. I have to Google it real quick, but he talks about the New World Order shit and how it's there will be a legitimate effort to depopulate because they're long-term health type of shits that the supposedly live forever, not the transhumanist shit. The efforts made to increase human longevity can't be done. The resources needed to do that need a lot less people on this planet.
Oh, absolutely. And I think, honestly, I think the only way they can implement another way to control costs and implement some of that would be have a maximum age, do some Logan's Run shit, where your red gems, you're going to ascend, or do what they did in The Giver, where you go into the great beyond.
Well, see, that one trips me out too because I'm a twin, and they had us read The Giver in the 4th grade, and you were raised Mormon, so there's always that apocalyptic thing in your head, right? So I'm sitting here, a Mormon kid in Mormonville as a twin reading The Giver, and that always stuck with me, dude. That never left me. It was just personal. Shit, there's a lot of... It's crazy how many of the... if we're sitting here talking about conspiracy, it's crazy to me how much has entered the public lexicon that is just once shit really got going, you don't see that anymore. Tell me are we ever going to see another great rock album, or did they go and kill rock? Because here's my conspiracy. They killed rock music because American Idiot hit the public lexicon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think
No,
That's the last.
I was there. I worked in radio when they started,
think
when rock
correct.
stations started getting killed off the air, and they were there, changing
Mhm.
formats. And I worked for a rock station that went top 40.
Yeah.
They
And they've
played
gone.
they played the song "Goodbye" 3 times, and then it was fucking Lady Gaga.
Mm-hmm. I really believe that they went out of their way because they did not expect that to go big. Green Day had been off the radio. I mean, punk was dead, and I mean, there's debates as to whether
and that
Green
shit
Day's
exploded.
punk or not. Yeah, I mean, I was in the third or fourth grade when that came out. And dude, that American Idiot album just exploded. I mean, that's really the last great rock album, right? You have a few more albums that followed out. You have like The Black Parade by MCR and shit like that. But dude, they basically, I mean, Green Day and MCR were lambasted publicly. The entire emo culture was turned into this awful, evil thing. I really believe that they went like that's the last dying grasp of the punk rock, of not just punk rock, but of the revolutionary rock music.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's interesting if you compare the lyrics. So the biggest song of like the Reagan Babies was "Living on a Prayer" by Bon Jovi. Oh well, we'll make it, I swear. Oh well, living on a prayer. It's this fake bullshit plastic song. And then you compare it to the biggest song of my generation is "Wake Me Up When September Ends," which is just like fucking apocalyptic.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And our generation always kind of
that,
knew that.
And those when those stations started dying, when that music stopped, when they killed that shit, when Rage Against the Machine broke up, and then that was like the last good Green Day. Like that is the last album Green Day ever came out with, wasn't it?
No. They've had plenty of albums since then.
But it's the last mainstream album, like
2009, 21st Century Breakdown, which has actually got some great songs for the times in itself. The song 21st Century Breakdown is just a fucking trip, dude.
Yeah.
I'll have to share it to you later, but
that really marks the shift of the left, because the left used to be the fuck you, I won't do what you tell me.
Yeah.
Now they're like, fuck you, do what they tell you.
Well, and so is the right? They just want you to do what they...
And that's the same thing with the right. The right says, do what the authority tells you. Everybody, whether you're left, whether you're a rightist or a leftist, they're both telling you, both those groups are telling you, just go with the flow, do what the authorities tell you to do.
Oh yeah.
They're not, don't fight the system. Don't fight the system. And my generation, because I'm like the last of like, I'm in that gray area between Gen X and millennial.
Yeah.
So I was born in 82, so it's like depending on which
you look at,
sheet you're looking at, I'm either Gen X or I'm a millennial.
See, I've always considered millennial to be one of the easier ones to date because it's like 80 to 94, right? Because I mean, I look at it like going, I mean, you're 21 for the millennia changing, which is technically 2001, to being barely old enough to remember it. And then obviously you have 9/11 that year. So that's a pretty good marker. Were you old enough to even remember 9/11?
Right. See, I was an adult in 9/11. I still remember when MTV had music videos and not television, not shows.
Yeah, I don't. I'm born in 94.
MTV literally had like MTV. I remember MTV Raps and all that shit. I grew up on that shit. So
that's great. It's crazy to me because these conspiracies everybody talks about. So what, brother? Oh, I guess he's leaving. Talk to you later.
He's having issues. Okay, I got him.
Cool.
He has to reload he has to reset his router. He's glitching out.
Yeah, probably. It's interesting when people talk about conspiracies, they always go to, you're a conspiracy theorist. You think the frogs are gay. You believe in lizard people. You believe in all this shit. And sometimes true conspiracy theory is a lot simpler than that. They've killed the culture. They have completely, I mean, robbed a generation of its birthright, of at least like having the same things their parents did, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's conspiracy theory in of itself. And then obviously people are like, well, what makes you think that? And that's when you get into real conspiracy theories. What's
Well,
your
like the biggest one I buy into that I actually believe is true is like the 9/11 conspiracy. That
oh yeah,
like there's parts of it now. Like the airplanes hitting the Twin Towers, I believe that was terrorists hitting the Twin Towers. But the plane that hit the Pentagon, now I remember 9/10 with with the Secretary of Defense going, we lost billions, trillions of dollars. We can't find it. And then all of a sudden, a plane manages to hit the side of the Pentagon right into the financial department of the Pentagon without knocking down any light poles, like a perfect surgical strike into the financial part of the Pentagon.
Mm-hmm. Well,
no,
and
I don't believe that at all. I believe that was an inside gig.
CIA was using World Trade Center 7 for it was used for the same type of financials as well. It was also the mission
building
command
that wasn't even hit by a plane somehow collapses.
So talking about the trade centers themselves, in this movement, we have seen it multiple times where people try and get spicy, and it's clear that they are agent provocateurs, correct?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I had some show up at the Sophie protest.
Oh yeah, it's the same thing. I mean that we see it with Oklahoma City. We see it with Ruby Ridge, pop shit off, yada yada. Ruby Ridge, or not Ruby Ridge, Oklahoma City is a good example. They call it PatCon, right? Was 9/11 anything different when you look into the fact that the Bushes and the Saudis, Bushes and the Bin Ladens had money going back, tracing them together for decades, back to when Prescott Bush Sr.'s father, made a fortune helping build the infrastructure for the Holocaust?
Yeah.
Do we look back? Their money traces directly to the Bin Ladens in the 50s and 60s. And then to present day, or to 2001. Do you think that's not out of the realm of possibilities that Bin Laden got a bunch of dudes together to get on some religious jihad mission in cahoots with the state to go bomb the trade centers or whatever? Do you think that's entirely out of the realm of possibilities? Not bomb, sorry, hijack and crash. I mean, so do I think that
well within our government's capabilities to do something
do
like
I believe that the planes
we've probably done it before?
Oh, I'm sure. Do I believe the planes hit? Absolutely. Do I believe that religious extremists hit them for their supposed purpose? Absolutely. But they were used for that purpose. It's Operation Northwoods, completely tied up in a bow. I mean, they were talking about doing these false flags in 61, 62, as an excuse to go to war with Cuba.
Yeah. It's all shit. It's all shit they've done before. I mean, they even. I mean, it's our government's capable of all kinds of fucked up shit against their own people. I mean, we've bombed our own people with. They bombed, like, where Central Park sits now was a community built by people of color, created their own town, and they tried to eminent domain it. They refused. It was a full-on massacre. They bombed it and then built Central Park.
Basically, yeah.
Nobody talks about that.
They did that in Philadelphia too.
They've done it in countless, and we've done it too many times.
Going back to 9/11, Alex Jones and another dude, I forget, the weirdo alien dude. It's been brought up around though. 3 months before 9/11, Bin Laden is on the run. They can't find Osama bin Laden. The most powerful structure on the planet can't find Osama bin Laden. But a hack-eye journalist from CNN blunders his way into an interview with bin Laden 3 months before the world, or 3 or 4 months before the trade centers. And that's not a red issue. I mean, they were saying that there would be a false flag, like in June. They would say that there would be an attack. That was in the papers. They were saying that there would be an attack, and he gets his interview, but Bin Laden can't. I mean, my God honest opinion is that Bin Laden was a CIA asset from the start. This was all manufactured, and I think Bin Laden had been dead years before they went and threw him in the lake, supposedly. Yes, David Icke or whatever, however you pronounce that, was the lizard guy. Yes.
Yep.
Ick, however you're supposed to pronounce that.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, it's. I mean, when it comes like. I don't like I said earlier in the show, I don't like using the term conspiracy theory because it just puts such a negative tone on it, because it's a theory, and and when you really look into these theories and you look at the history, what our government has done to other people, what our government has done to our own people, it's all plausible. Like, these theories are not outlandish. Like, I know like people don't want to believe it, but we've done it to other We've done it to other countries. I mean, look at what is his name? Hugo Chavez. That's he's the
Venezuela.
He was now back. This is back in the Clinton days. We were buddy with Venezuela. We in Venezuela, we were tight.
Yeah,
they were cool. Like, we were cool with each other. Everything was fine. And then he was like, "Hey, I kind of want to raise the price of my oil to you guys so we can actually, because hey, you're getting this for dirt cheap. The Saudis are selling it for this. I want to sell it for this and make some profit. This is my oil. I want to make some profit." And then all of a sudden now he's a fascist dictator, and we put sanctions on him. And then now he became an enemy of the state. I mean, even when Katrina hit, Venezuela sent us like 5 tankers of refined fuel.
Yeah.
And President Bush said, "I don't want your shit. Just take it back. I don't want it."
Yeah, and I mean, Hugo Chavez was definitely a despot, but
I'm not saying he's a good guy, but I mean, it's amazing how when we're getting what we want from foreign countries, we're all buddy, but the minute they try to stand up for themselves, we all of a sudden now they're shitheads and we have to fucking depose them.
Oh yeah, I mean, that's the entire unrest in the Middle East, anyways. It comes from us. Basically, I mean, it comes from the Brits reneging on deals made after World War One, and I mean, Israel's just the tip of the iceberg for what that's issues about.
Don't get me started with Israel.
Yeah,
I mean, I get nothing against. I've got Israeli blood in me, and nothing against Israelites. People of Israel, it's just what they're doing to the Palestinians and what's going on that you can't just. It's fucked up. It's they've created a situation with no right fucking answer.
They've created the perfect fascist utopia as an answer to the world's largest fascist dictatorship.
That was in a response to another fascist dictatorship doing, killing, committing genocide.
Yeah, their response was to create a fascist dictatorship that just create or fascist government that
fascism from fascism.
Yeah, and I mean Israel's gross. And what's funny too is it's the perfect utopia too, because this idea that like Israelites really exist or Palestinians really exist, it's a created conflict, right? I mean, that land had been so far removed from concepts of people being Israelites or Palestinians for since the biblical eras, right? That's a manufactured term. You're Arab or you're this or that. You're Kurdish. You're Sunni or Shia Muslim. There's a multitude of different religious specifications or racial specifications that can be done, but none of them. There's no like real Israelite or Palestinian, right? That's right. It's like
they're all Arab. I mean, and it's really funny. Simpsons touched on that too. It's like you both, you both don't eat pork.
Mm-hmm.
Let's eat chicken.
Well, and a lot of the Israelites down there are Eastern European. They're Slavic. They're Slavic. They're
Polish.
Polish. They're Russian, they're
Yugoslavian,
Scandinavian. Yeah.
they're Eastern European.
They're not. I mean, they're not Arabs. And to me, at the end of the day, I know that there's this. To me, that is just the. I mean, at the end of the day, their only justification for it is religious. There's no justification for Israel to exist. There isn't. I mean, to me, morally speaking, fascism does not beget fascism.
No, and to go into an area where people have already established homesteads, already established cities, already established their own governments, and already it's theirs. They're there, and then to go and be like, hey, move. And
then the problem is that you get issues where this is where America comes in too. It's like, I'll be straight up honest, like, I mean, I have a hard time complaining when America gets attacked for that sort of shit. When they're the ones perpetrating it. They are the aggressors at the end of the day.
Yeah,
that's a tricky.
Nobody wants to attack Israel because, well, let's face it, Israel's got one of those strong. They're like they're a small country with the strongest fucking army. Like, I remember when Egypt, Libya, and one other, like, when the Arab nations decided no, fuck Israel, they attacked Israel. They got their asses kicked, hard.
Yeah. Well, and
Israel took on 3 or 4 countries and beat the shit out of them.
Well, but they did it with
6 countries.
Yeah, they did it with American money and resources.
Well, they did it with our money, our resources. I mean, we have a really tight relationship. Our government, our military industrial complex. I mean, we made the F-18, right?
Yep.
We gave them to Israel, and then Israel said, "Hey, we can make this better."
Yeah.
And they developed the weapon systems, the fucking goggle that you wear with the tracking and shit. I mean, there's a fucking first aid bandage named after Israel. It's the Israeli Israeli bandage. That's a fucking it's an occlusive bandage. It's a tourniquet. It's like a fucking 9-in-1 fucking bandage that we gave them one, and they just turned it into something completely different. And we bought 1 billion of those fucking things off.
Huh.
Yeah, there's our military industrial complex in Israel are they're butt buttons.
Yeah, and I get the concepts of wanting to, create a colony or whatever you want to call it of your own people. But you don't colonize to make that, colony. It's essentially what they did. Whether it be on religious holy grounds or not, there's no justification for that. I mean, it's interesting too because
it's how you start a holy war.
Yep.
Because you're taking a land that's being disputed between basically 3 major religions, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam.
Yeah.
And now you're putting it, you're creating what is potentially going to be a holy war.
Well, and it's easy to create hate too, right? You create this entire Zionism, anti-Zionist movement. You and then the next thing you know, it's fuck the Jewry, and it's that's where the conspiracy theories get weird, right?
Right.
That's where they get unsettling because it's so blatantly psyop, right? They've created that hate to exist. There's a kernel of this isn't right, and then they hate all of it, and then you end up hating the air. Everybody just ends up hating everybody.
Yeah, and you can't really talk about it because if you talk about Israel in negative light, now you're labeled an anti-Semite, you're labeled this, you're labeled that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's I'm not talking about the religion, I'm talking about the country and their policy and what they're doing. It's 2 separate things.
Simultaneously, you're Islamophobic if you comment on the atrocities of Islam, what happens in radical Islam, and how widely accepted that is.
Yeah. No, you can't. It's a whole. It's like a whole book. It's this fucking thick of shit you can't talk about.
Well, because the elites want us to burn each other down and not be able to say a word about it while we do it. And that's not just that's with the holy war. That's with the cancel culture. That's with the war on culture in of itself. That's with the war on education, all these things. What it comes down to is the elites want us to sit there and burn each other down to the fucking ground, simultaneously making it so we can't say anything about it. I mean, that's the ultimate conspiracy of it all.
Infight, so they can do whatever they're doing, and we're just too distracted to see what the fuck they're doing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. While we still on here, what is your favorite wacky conspiracy?
Oh, wacky conspiracy?
Like weird one.
Weird one. To be perfectly honest, I think I touched on it earlier. I think the weirdest one was the water frogs gay. Was the weirdest one that turned out to be like accurate. But
I'm not necessarily meaning accurate. Like my favorite wacky one is the fact that Paul McCartney died in 1967. There's a whole theory that McCartney died in 67 was hit, and it's been an actor.
Okay. Tupac's still alive in Argentina.
Oh, I've heard that one. Yeah.
Tupac, I've seen the pictures where there's like, Tupac's alive in Argentina. There's like a picture guy who looks just like Tupac in Argentina.
Talking about people still being alive in Argentina, though, and getting back into conspiracies, do you think Hitler died at the end of World War II?
No, I don't think so either. I think he went to Argentina too, and
I do too.
Died of old age.
I really do too, because we're seeing the Fourth Reich. I mean, NASA was basically a Nazi front. And I mean,
we took all their scientists and developed the A-bomb and the rocket and the rocket program, the moon rocket program, and all that shit from the Nazi super scientists.
All the elites loved, absolutely adored the Nazi party, or what fascism was doing. So, the largest rally held in Madison Square Garden in the late, I think it was 38 or 39, was a pro-Nazi rally. And this is the largest rally held in Madison Square Garden for the renovation in the late 60s, was a Nazi rally put together by people including Prescott Bush, the grandfather of Junior and the father of Senior, and Barron Trump, the grandfather of Donald Trump.
No shit.
Yeah, in New York elites put this together. Prescott Bush was a senator of Massachusetts at the time. Was well-to-do but not uber-rich. Goes in and gets contracts with the Nazi government for making their railroads out in Poland in the late 30s, early 40s. Builds the infrastructure of what was basically the Holocaust with people including Henry Ford. IBM made the first ever database that hunted down Jews. Volkswagen's literally a Nazi company.
Yep.
Okay. Do you know that the Bushes and the British royal family are distant cousins?
No. Who?
The British royal family, like Queen Elizabeth, is like the sixth cousin of George Bush.
Really?
Yeah. Okay.
No shit.
Do you know who Time Person of the Year was in 1940?
Who?
Adolf Hitler.
Oh, that's right.
Do you know who really played a part in setting that up? Pope Pius XII? No. His distant cousin George the Sixth or whatever, Queen Elizabeth's father, was close personal friends with Adolf Hitler. Because do you know that the House of Windsor doesn't actually exist?
Really?
They're all ethnic Germans. It was the House of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha. Look the shit up. They're like ethnic. They're like that weird European royalty where they're all mixed. They're all fucking mixed. And it was called the House of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha, and they rebranded it in World War I.
Yeah,
that is some trippy shit. But we got about a minute left, and then we got to wrap it up. Unfortunately,
we're jumping on MLTP.
I got double booked.
We need to do this again.
We do. I think we need to do a conspiracy theory part 2. And do this longer, because there's so. I mean, there's this is just the iceberg. There's so much more out there, and I'm glad you were able to come on and shed some light on this, and definitely want to have you back on so we can discuss this more.
I could keep doing these for days and days and days and days.
I know you could. You're very informed on the subject.
If you wanted to talk really zany conspiracy, you talked about Hitler in Argentina. There's a theory he's still alive today.
There are people that really believe that he was one of the first test subjects to work on extended life.
Really?
Like it's a whole subject. Yeah, it goes hand in hand with Holocaust. But the Holocaust was used as a front to try and do research on extending human longevity, and he's basically been he's like the first successful transhuman experiment.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll have to touch on this. We'll have to touch on this another time.
Sounds good.
This has been Shooting the Shit on Hibiscus Society News. Tommy and Patrick, thanks for coming on. Definitely gonna have you guys back on so we can do more on this. But thanks for watching.
I'm gonna see you in like 5 seconds.
Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button,
Fuck the state.
And stay frosty, folks.
You too. Have fun.